Welcome to Postscript World on Fire Season 1. This is the penultimate episode, episode 6. I'm Fred Fegan along with Matt Wilson. Hey, Matt.
Hi, Fred. How are you today?
I'm stressed. This was a stressful episode.
Not an easy watch.
The last 2 or 3 have been, well, all of them have been stressful, but this...
It's a drama. It's a war drama. It comes with rules, probably.
Yeah. My hands were sweating through the whole episode. It just, I didn't like how things ended. But I guess as we're dealing with the penultimate episode, if I could say it correctly, we'll run into things like this.
So these next to last, penultimate's a great word. These next to last episodes tend to go in a couple flavors. Sometimes they're big action set pieces, leaving the last episode for cleanup, wrap up. Didn't really feel like that was the case. There was no big conflict or war. Now, there's a few small threads we can talk about. The Rosslers come to mind.
Yeah, we got to talk about the Rosslers. There are a couple new characters that show up, just like in the last episode, and I'm like, we're getting close to the end of this series. How are we adding new people now?
This also didn't feel like a traditional episode, like building up to a big moment in the final episode, because everything is just kind of trundling along. Now, we do see Harry going back out. And I chuckled a bit when his new boss said, you might find yourself in Poland or France, which is exactly where all the other characters we still care about are living. And again, note, Germany is right between Poland and France, so getting from one to the other would be an interesting experience. But I think I really want to dig into the story of the Rosslers to start. Because this is... obviously heartbreaking in all kinds of ways. But I think what they're trying to teach us through this, besides the fun of watching dramatic shows and all the pain that comes with that, is just how bad the Nazi Party was. Yeah. Folks that are familiar with George Orwell, who actually got a name drop in an earlier episode, in his Ministry of Truth theory, you kind of see that playing out here during the interrogation scenes, where they are making, I believe it's Claudia, I'm blanking on the name, but Herr Rossler, the wife, I believe it's Claudia, repeat lies to herself about the most mundane things. Milk.
About milk, yeah. Milk. And how it tasted awful.
Right, no, it's great. Tell yourself it's great. I will tell you it's great. Because any sign of distrust, any sign of dissatisfaction with reality is taken as a statement of lack of faith in leadership.
Right.
And so they don't allow that, and they beat it out of you, in essence.
Right. There's no currency about her son is fighting in this war as a Nazi. Right. What is the husband's name? Uwe,
yeah.
Thank you.
Little German in high school coming in handy with this show.
Yeah, and I had 0, so that's also showing. But he pledged allegiance to the party, to the Nazi Party, but that didn't seem to get
all
him
the
very
good
far
it did
either.
Yeah,
to protect his daughter.
Yeah, he's a good man. He's a bad liar. That got him into some of the trouble. His own choices, obviously, with dealing with Frau Pressler, I believe, at his company.
You knew that was just not going to end well.
Too many witnesses, too many snitches. We got Frau Klopp living next door that I'm sure is passing on everything, who had the temerity to walk into their apartment just to see what's going on.
Yeah. We didn't see her last episode.
No,
we figured maybe that was the end of her. But then she shows up right at the right moment here to be like, gosh, I knew she was coming back and she was going to be trouble.
Yeah, I think she had a lot to do with all that. And he thinks so, too. He actually screams at her, I will kill you. Pretty blatant stance of his perception on this. But I'm in a way glad that Nancy was there. She talked him back through the realities of it. The only thing he has left is his son, and he probably needs to make decisions to protect him as he's still out there actively in the war. And we saw from an early episode on the fence about things to some degree. Maybe a shred of humanity in there. But
when he paths crossed with Cassia, who we didn't see at all. I mean, like for a split second this episode, Jan was having a bad dream. All right. But not to get off course.
No. So let's pivot to that, because Cassia it's about 26 minutes in the episode. We finally see her in this episode. Going back to episode 1 and thinking about what this series could end up being, I felt maybe it would be more complicated well, it's complicated, but this has become Harry's story, I think.
Okay.
Purely Harry's story in my mind. Cassia, I thought in what we saw in the first few episodes with her bravery, her strength, I really thought we'd kind of see more of that play out. And we do. Certainly in the last episode, we see her sort of, I've referred to her as Black Widow at times. She's kind of moving into that role of a freedom fighter. She has a very small part in this episode, and I think it's very real, but it's just a moment with her in utter brokenness. Obviously, her mom, her dad, her older brother she saw but is gone. Her younger brother she sent away.
Yeah, so as far as she knows, she's all alone.
Right. And she pulls out the picture, and the picture is, I believe, the only bird watch we have of this episode. I don't think we see an actual...
I've been looking very closely. But yeah, other than the credits and then that moment, no living birds.
Right. And I wonder how much of that is that she misses Harry or just that everything. And does it even matter? Because it's not clear if he's ever thinking about her anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like Harry's thinking about her in the context of the complication he's made with Lois. I mean, you
Right.
can see him just pause or slow to decide something because he's just sorting that, seems to be sorting that through in virtually every episode. But my take with Cassia is that she's just lamenting how life was and how it will never be again. A majority of her family is gone or somewhere else, and she has no idea if she'll ever see them again. And it's just a gut-wrenching thought.
Yeah.
Just think that's it. She's in this war-torn Poland, and the next day is not a guarantee.
Right.
And just living the life like that.
Yeah, I can't imagine. But if it's Harry's show, then let's talk about Harry a little bit. He gets back home, so he gets off of the beach of Dunkirk, which we weren't sure about, but obviously we connect the dots now. He brought a colleague, Demba, one of the Senegalese soldiers, brings him back to his house. So Robina gets to meet Demba, and Jan is there still, of course. She has a great line where she looks at Harry and says, "Do you think I'm lonely?"
Yeah.
Because you keep bringing these strange
The
people
human
back to the
souvenirs.
house. Yes.
Yeah. And through the first half of the episode, she seems to play that kind of comic relief, which is
It's been a
good.
role her character has stepped into at times.
Yeah.
Buttressed by the old Robina showing at times of her prejudices. I wonder if down the road Harry will be able to break her out of some of that, given all the contact she's getting. And we also get a throwaway line by her, but just speaking of the civilization of the Germans, because they didn't bomb Paris, which is a really low bar to clear, I guess.
Right. All of a sudden they're softening because they didn't destroy Paris.
Right. Yeah. Harry gets a few other small scenes. He gets a quick. Does he connect with Lois in this episode?
Yes.
They
They
do.
were
Okay.
talking because they brought the Senegalese
To the train station.
yeah.
Right, and they go together. Yeah.
and then they just kind of are wandering around a little bit. And Lois at that point is like,
right.
you know what? I don't need your help. I don't need you. Let's just be done with this.
It goes even worse than that because I remember there's a great line in there too. Harry says, "What will you tell the baby about me?"
Oh, that you're dead.
Yeah, so you're died in the war.
It's a war.
Yeah.
It's not a far-fetched story, which,
Yeah, so Lois has a plan, doesn't need Harry. Actually has, it's tough to judge her interest in our pilot friend, Vernon Hunter, but he does show up again.
he does, trying to defend her at one moment
Yep.
through a misunderstanding, but she seems to be impressed with his interest in defending her honor.
Yes, impressed. He makes a strong pitch to her at the very end, and I couldn't judge her reaction. She doesn't say anything, so she doesn't go on record with any sort of response.
Well, I mean, for the time we've now known Lois, she she is still bent out of shape about Harry. And so she's probably very protective and probably tentative about entering into a new relationship. I don't blame her.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Trust might be an issue.
Right.
Trust of men, people she doesn't know, involved in the war. She understands the risks with that. Probably not trying to be too attached to someone that might
Right.
get shot down in the next flight or whatever. So, yeah, don't envy any of these characters, anything. Everybody is in a rough situation with a lack of good choices.
Mm-hmm.
Makes it difficult. We do get a few small mysteries solved. For example, the relationship between Connie and Eddie, which was teased in the
Right.
prior episode.
They're
We wondered if they
reunited.
were siblings, perhaps, but no, I think
They're married.
They're married, or at least romantic interests. Yep. We see Jeff again. Remember Jeff? Jeff is a shell-shocked soldier.
Yeah.
so-
Yeah, Lois helping him. Yeah.
and I think that circles us back around to what took up a good chunk of the episode.
Before we get to Webster and
Yep.
Albert, don't forget Tom's still alive.
Tom is still alive,
Yeah.
and we actually see him first with Webster.
With
and
Webster. So
Albert.
that's a good
That works.
yeah.
So Tom is still alive. We weren't sure. We saw him kind of get strafed across and thrown to the ground at the end of the last episode. Set up as a little bit of a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
What makes me intrigued by all this is the big escape plan that the doctor comes up with involves faking paperwork of Tom's death.
Mm-hmm.
That paperwork is probably going to make its way back to England to some degree, and I fear for Tom's father.
Yes.
We'll see where that goes. I don't know.
Poor
Again,
Douglas, who's been just a wreck the past 3 or
Yep.
4 episodes now.
we should share. We're going through this live. I have not watched the last episode of the season. This
Yes.
is not a
We have no idea how it
sneaky
ends
little
here.
teaser. This is pure speculation. So somewhere between Paris and Dunkirk, in that 270 kilometers worth of land, was a field clinic medical hospital that
Webster was
Dr. Webster set up shop for a while with Albert and Henrietta. They actually took most of their staff along.
Mhm.
That is where they briefly met Harry and some of Harry's men, at least. I think Harry was there.
And the shell-shocked man. Yeah.
Right. Yep. And then picked up Tom and brought Tom back from that field clinic to Paris.
Yeah.
We know now that Paris has been invaded and taken over by the Germans. So this puts us at least June 14th of 1940. Quick little history
And
of it.
they seem to have commandeered their living location.
Commandeer everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're taking over the hospital in essence. They took over all the prime real estate, so the fancy hotels. And then about 2/3 through the episode, we learned they just start taking over people's houses. So
Yeah.
both Albert and Webster's homes, the Nazis just moved in.
Right. So we find Albert kind of in prison.
Yeah, it looked like a camp, some sort of prison. They took him, I think, either from the jazz club or from his house. Doesn't really matter. But yeah, he is imprisoned along with some other prisoners of war / just civilians.
Mm-hmm.
Through the help of a somewhat sympathetic Nazi, and I think that guy's name is Sieber, who sort of advises and steers Dr. Webster away from challenging confrontations into safer spaces to talk, for one,
Yeah.
and also gives him some information about how and where to find Albert.
Mhm.
Trying to guess motivations here.
Yeah,
Again, there
it's hard to
are
read.
yeah, there will be people in the German army or Nazi party that will have sympathies. Or it's
They like jazz
reasonable
music,
to think,
maybe.
right, maybe just was jazz music.
Yeah.
Maybe he understood the relationship at a somewhat deeper level because of some sign or whatever. Maybe he had information, but clearly has a little bit of apparent sympathy and wants to try to help. Webster does end up at this prison talking to Albert, and Albert is very hesitant to try any sort of big escape plan.
Right. He's like, don't do anything that's going to jeopardize your life. Don't, let's leave well enough alone.
Right. It's unlikely to work and would just make things worse.
Right.
is
Because
the
where's he
line.
going to go to if he gets out of there?
Right. So that's where that is left. It's been a difficult to watch that play along as well. It is starting to tie together, the mystery of why this character even existed back in the early episodes and seeing some of these themes coalesce.
Well, Nancy's his aunt.
Yeah, I believe it's
Aunt?
Aunt
Aunt?
and
That's my New England showing.
right.
Yeah, we have. I was thinking like we haven't seen any reconnection there for whatever reason. I mean, actually, Nancy is. I mean, although she was part of the story with the Rosslers, I feel like her role is kind of pulled back. Like she was very front and center early on in the series.
Yeah, she's acting almost like a narrator at times because of the news reports. It allows a
That's a
nice
good
sort
point.
of voiceover, her story mixed in with other action. I have a completely unlikely conspiracy theory about a character named Randy, who's that second pilot.
Okay.
Early, I think in the last episode, there's a weird little side conversation. He says he's Canadian, but people are suspicious and think he's actually American, pretending to be Canadian for whatever reason.
I was gonna say what? Okay.
In this episode, he mentions he has a brother that's in France, and we don't know Randy's last name.
Okay. Well, we got one more episode to figure this one out.
Yeah, if the brother's a doctor, I'm gonna throw this microphone. It would just be the next of these sort of really intricate coincidences, but it's fiction.
It
can
is
happen.
fiction.
It's fine.
Right? All these characters seem to bump into each other at some point. I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll see. If you asked me what the title of this episode
Sure.
was, I was prepared.
I should have.
with a really stupid answer too. Where is Gregor's? That was going to be my.
Where is Gregor's? He's in England somewhere, we think.
He was able to get on a boat? We don't know. Last
we
we
saw
knew,
him-
Tom was threatening him.
No, we saw Gregor's finally in a boat with
Oh, that's
Albert.
right. Oh, right at the end of the episode. Never mind. Okay.
No, with Eddie and with Sergeant Stan
Yes.
and those other two guys that went with Stan. Yeah, it was the whole Brady bunch coming back in together. So yeah, he's in England somewhere, I think, but we
All
don't
right.
see him all episode. That's interesting.
And
Hard to see where his story goes from here because
well,
he doesn't know anybody.
as far as we know, as far as we know, he doesn't know anybody other than Jan, but he wouldn't even know.
Right,
Like
and Harry's
that would be
leaving
the most
England.
ridiculous thing for them
Right.
to bump into
Stumble
each other.
across each other in
Well, maybe Harry.
Manchester.
You're right. They would
Yeah,
know
but-
each other.
But we think Harry's leaving, so
Oh, that's true.
yeah, he's getting a parachute job out in either Poland or France that he's likely to not survive. Is the line?
Yeah, and I didn't catch what is his new boss's name.
I
did
have it
not-
somewhere. It's
It was on the envelope.
yeah, Major Taylor.
Major Taylor.
Yeah, what a weird urinal-based job interview that was. If
It's such an odd.
you haven't
scene.
seen the episode, hopefully that alone gets you. No, it's a
A scene that takes place amongst the urinals.
So it's very cloak and daggery. It's a unauthorized mission that Harry gets signed into because of his language skills, because of his survival instincts, combat experience.
Because they know he forged some documents.
Right. Yep. He feels a bit of a survivalist. They're going to send him with minimal equipment, no contacts, no support back out into the field with a parachute drop into, we're told, either Poland or France. Yeah. So, well, to be seen if he tries to find Cassia, if he even can, if he even goes in that direction.
You think that's his motivation?
I don't think so. I haven't seen much from him that makes me think he cares. Like, did he want to marry her out of that interest, or
Well,
did
that
he
was
get
Nancy's
talked into it because of
recommendation.
Nancy's
Yeah.
idea? Right? Was it just a way to try to get someone he liked out of a war-torn or to be war-torn country, or was
that
it
work?
true? Wait, how did that work? It didn't. Well, he got Jan out. I guess it's
Yeah.
something. Jan seems like he's doing okay. His English is getting better, which probably helps him feel like he's making friends and fitting in.
Well, I hope his bird's still alive. We
His
haven't seen the bird,
haven't seen the
so
bird.
I'm concerned.
He clearly still likes Douglas, which is great.
Yes.
A little bit of a father figure for a young man that clearly needs one. And that's where we're left at the end of, again, the penultimate episode 6.
A penultimate drinking game. A
Drinking
penultimate.
game? Yeah.
We'll have coffee here.
That's fair.
Cheers.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, we have a lot maybe to be resolved in the next episode. We do know season 2 is on the way. Matt and I will be here with you dissecting those episodes as they come out in the coming weeks. So it'll be interesting. Had we done this in 2020 when this
2020.
first released, what our attitudes would be, knowing that it'd be a while till season 2, where we're just going right into it here.
Yeah, if I knew we had one episode left and all of these sort of dangling threads, I don't know how they're going to tie this up. It
Yeah.
is interesting to see a 3-ish, well, production schedules aside, a 3-ish real-time lag between season 1 and season 2. Jan will be a lot older. The actor, let's say, that played the character. Others, of course, too, but
Yeah, I was gonna say presumably everyone's gonna be older.
well, sure. But thinking character-wise and actor-wise, we'll see if they do any sort of time skip. I don't know what they'll do. We'll see.
That's a
Curious to see
good
that.
point. And it's also more noticeable with kid actors, isn't it? When they
That's-
age.
that's
They
why I
hit-
singled
I'm
them out,
sorry.
right? That's
I'm
okay.
just giving you a hard time. All right.
Anyway, we'll find out. But
We'll find out.
episode 7 next, and then we'll go from there.
All right. Sounds good.
If you're having fun, hopefully you are having fun with us, but we'd like you to join the party here, join the podcast. You can ask us questions, send your feedback, send your thoughts. A couple ways through email, postscript@witf.org or just ps@witf.org. You can find us on all of the WTF social medias, and you can, if you're intrigued in watching us instead of just listening to us, head up to the WITF Mosaic YouTube channel. You'll find videos there of all of Postscript and a whole bunch of other arts, culture, lifestyle content that we know you'll love. If you want to help us make more content like this, we hope you do. Please visit witf.org/mosaic for information on all of our programming and how you can, again, help make more of this great content.
And be sure to join us for the final episode of Season 1 that's coming up next. Matt and I will be here again to wring our hands over what we see in that, and then we'll be along with you for Season 2. So stay close. We'll be back in touch with you soon.